This is the Crowdcrux Crowdfunding Podcast with Sal Briggman, where we cover everything you need to know to launch a successful crowdfunding campaign. We speak with proven entrepreneurs who've raised money from the crowd and want to teach you how to do the same. Stay tuned because we're about to reveal how to launch your dream project. With your host, Sal Briggman.
Before we get started with this podcast episode, I want to take a second to introduce you to my friends at Fulfillrite. If you need help shipping out your Kickstarter or Indiegogo perks or rewards, Fulfillrite is the absolute best company for you. I've been working with them for a while and I can vouch for their services. They make it dead simple and take all of the headache out of shipping out all of those boxes, all of those orders to your backers and your customers. If you want to check them out, go to fulfillrite.com at fulfillrite.com. Hey, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast, wherever you are hailing in from, wherever you're listening to this from. Thank you so much for your time, and I want to make this episode well worth it. I want you to come away feeling more confident going into your crowdfunding campaign. I want you to learn from some of these inspiring entrepreneurs and kind of get the real-world advice that's not happening. You know, if you Google something online, you might get a few tips or a few bits of advice, but you're getting nothing like you're going to discover on this podcast episode. I go in-depth and intense with these entrepreneurs. I really try to get behind the scenes with their project, understand what were the mechanisms, what are the things that they do to get funding to their project, how do they actually accelerate, how they have a really good launch with their campaign. It's my job to kind of tease out these best practices and these techniques, and it's your job, my friend, to implement these with your own crowdfunding campaign. Today's episode, I spoke with a hyper-successful entrepreneur who's launched two successful crowdfunding campaigns. His first campaign raised over $500,000 for SmartHalo. His second one, SmartHalo 2, is at $700,000, with 6,000 backers. And he's also done tons of stuff, like he's gotten into the Apple Store. His product is actually being sold in the Apple Store, which is really cool. And he came on the episode today to talk a little bit about some of the lessons that he's learned about leadership when it comes to assembling a team behind you and your project. Also, some of the advice that he has for you if you want to knock it out of the park with your crowdfunding campaign, how he was able to get so many pledges for his project, and also the thought process behind creating a product that people want. I think it's really easy to create a product nowadays. You can gather a group of people together, you can design it, you can create a product, but to create a product that people want to buy, that is the magic sauce. That's where the secret sauce is. That's what you got to figure out. And he speaks a little bit to that, how they were able to come up with this product idea. Before we get into this episode, I want to quickly mention here that, number one, if you are still searching and you're still kind of wondering, how do you put together one of these successful campaigns? Sal, I've been listening to your podcast. I love it, but I don't really know what to do going forward. I would love a little bit more, step-by-step kind of information. Your podcast is sometimes all over the place, if you want more of a step-by-step proven blueprint for going into this crowdfunding campaign, I have a great book out there on Audible, which is called The Kickstarter Launch Formula. This book has been acclaimed by a lot of different students over the years. They've said very nice things, and this guide basically is coalescing my knowledge since 2012, last 6 years, and sort of putting that all together into one comprehensive, value-packed audio book that you can download. You can listen to anywhere you want. You can listen to while you're going to work, you're going to, you're doing your dishes, you're cleaning your room, whatever it is you're doing. You can listen to this audiobook, and I try to read it with the same level of passion and pizzazz and excitement that I do with the podcast. So it's kind of like a fun learning experience. It's also a lot of really great techniques and tricks that I haven't shared anywhere else. Just because there's so much that goes into a crowdfunding campaign, from estimating costs to the actual marketing to creating the video. This is a great place to get started. It's a really great, I think, return on your investment. Honestly, it's nothing. So if you're interested in that, you can go to crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That will take you to the audiobook, where you can also, if you want, You can get a free trial of Audible, 30-day free trial, and you will get a free copy of the Kickstarter launch formula audio version. In addition, if you want to hop in my newsletter, you can go to crowdcrux.com/subscribe or crowdcrux.com/subscribe. You'll get my weekly newsletter, get some free crowdfunding tips and advice. But finally, if you want to work one-on-one with me, I'll share a link at the end of the podcast that will clue you into that. And if you're interested, we can get started working together towards your success with crowdfunding. But without further ado, let's get into today's podcast episode. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we have a two-time successful Kickstarter entrepreneur and crowdfunder on the show. Their first project for SmartHalo raised over 500,000 Canadian dollars. They then launched for SmartHalo 2, which is currently raising money on Kickstarter. They've attracted more than 6,000 backers, more than 700,000 in funding, and we have the privilege today of being able to talk with Xavier, who is the co-founder and CEO of this company. Welcome to the show. I'd love to get started by asking you about this first product that you've created, SmartHalo. Can you tell me a little bit about sort of the genesis behind that, and also what were you doing before you launched this company?
Sure. So with my co-founder, we're both urban cyclists, and we found that there wasn't any good solutions for navigating the city by bike. Basically, cars have been getting better and smarter. Yet we figured that for cycling, it was pretty much the same for a long time. Mm-hmm. And one of the examples is navigation. I've been biking for a long time, and most of the time when I wanted to go to a new place, I would just take my phone in my hand and navigate with one hand, which wasn't super safe. And once I actually fell and actually hurt myself pretty badly by looking at my phone, Yeah. And about a week after that, my bike got stolen. So I felt pretty terrible. And speaking with some of my friends about what had happened, most of them had similar stories, Mm-hmm. So with my co-founder, we decided to tackle this. We were both sort of freelancing at the time. I was mostly doing freelance writing and translation. And my co-founder was a graphic designer, so he was doing, just freelance work. So we wanted to build something, and what had sparked this is we figured, hey, everybody has these very powerful computers in their pockets, and we should probably leverage that. It's just that the interface for cycling is not the best. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Phone's not the ideal way to show information.
So basically, this turns your bike into a smart bike, kind of. It's kind of like a GPS. Well, I guess like a TomTom combined with using smart technology. Kind of goes on your bike, and it really I think helps as well when if it's dark out. Man, it's impossible to navigate with your bike when it's dark out. So I can see a lot of different applications here.
Exactly. And I mean, when we first had the idea for SmartHalo, I wouldn't say we wanted to make smart bikes, but we wanted to solve a pretty narrow problem, navigation and safety of my bike, And as we started working on this, we realized that what could be a good interface for this is actually a circle, because a circle can show many things in a very simple and intuitive way. Basically, we thought, okay, what about arrows, left and right? But then we realized, well, this is not going to work in situations where you have a slight right turn, an angled direction.
Yeah.
So we figured, okay, let's add just more arrows, until we kept adding arrows until, well, this is just a circle,
Yeah.
So, we figured, okay, let's have this circle of light, of LEDs on the handlebar. And then we had to figure out how to do the plastic casing and all of this. And it was pretty, evident quite at the beginning that the best way to finance this project was going to do it crowdfunding.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So when did you launch this first campaign for the first SmartHalo?
So we launched it at the end of summer of 2015. Mm-hmm. So we had been working on this project sort of part-time for about a year. And at that point, when we were pretty successful for the campaign, we figured, okay, now we have to be all in. We have to work full time on this project, and we have to start paying ourselves.
And you got funded within the first 15 hours, it looks like, with your first campaign, which is pretty phenomenal. So congratulations on that. When it came to that project, like you launched this thing, you guys have been working on this for a while, and you don't really know how the public is going to gauge it, or you maybe have had some good feedback, you don't really know. And then you end up like knocking this out of the park. You get attracted more than 3,000 backers, $500,000 in funding. Like, what did that feel like?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. You're right. When you're starting a project, you get a bunch of feedback, and some people like it, some people hate it. And it's really hard to say if it's gonna work out or not. One of the things that we did back then, and we did again for SmartHalo 2, is we collected a bunch of emails in advance. So the key is really to try to build, this community of early adopters that will buy it, as soon as you send that email, that it's ready to pre-order on Kickstarter, basically.
How did the company grow since your first project? Like you launch this thing, you're successful, you get all this funding, you go out there, you make the SmartHalo, and you produce it. How has the company grown since 2015?
It's grown quite a lot. I mean, we've had our ups and downs, but we're 15 employees in total now. We've delivered, so the first crowdfunding was 3,000 units, but over the life of the product, we've delivered 25,000 units. So Kickstarter is just the first step, right? We ended up signing with Apple to distribute. So our product is in all the Apple stores in Canada and the US and Europe. And as far as I know, we were the first crowdfunding campaign to achieve that. I know that some other products have managed to get in afterwards, but I'm still pretty proud of this.
I think that's really important as well, because Apple, number one, I think you have a really sleekly designed product, but also just the ecosystem there, and you kind of reach like a mainstream appeal. You basically use crowdfunding, which is kind of a niche thing, in order to get into the mainstream with distribution, which is kind of cool, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true that, you can't really build a company just with crowdfunding. I mean, some actually do it, but it's very rare. I think crowdfunding is a way to get early funding and get paid in advance, which is really, really important in a hardware startup. Get that money up front, but then you need to quickly pivot to something where you can sell on, at Apple ideally, but we were selling at Amazon, of course. We've sold in some Best Buy. Anyway, so you need to find a way to get that recurring revenue from recurring customers. You understand?
Yeah, definitely. So as you've been growing this, I mean, you're growing from 0 employees to then like a dozen, basically, and you have lots of new challenges going forward with this. What have you learned on like the leadership front, or assembling teammates behind this product? What have you learned about that?
Well, I've learned that it's really crucial to find the right people, and when you make mistakes too. It's my first company as well. I think we've made a few mistakes hiring people, and it's always super hard to let them go. And finding the right people that complement your own skills is crucial, right? And I would say that building the first prototype and filming the video and doing a successful campaign is like the easy part, in a sense. The prototype is just it's pretty easy, relatively speaking. What's hard is to manufacture something at scale. You need to design it in a way that makes sense in terms of unit economics, right? So if you're building a prototype, it doesn't matter if the prototype costs a few $100s. That's fine. It's okay, but you need to find a way to manufacture in a way that you can still have some margins for yourself to pay salaries, and that's the hard part, for sure.
And also have margins for marketing and those types of things. It's a whole, I think, numbers crunching operation. And also you always maybe have some events that happen, like you have a shipment that gets lost or something, and then your numbers are like botched for that month or whatever. So it's really important. One of the questions I had for you before we get into your new campaign, I want to ask you was, when you were making some of those mistakes with the hiring, what would you say to yourself, looking back? Was it that you have to more rigorously like test people over a longer period, or what did you take away from that?
I mean, what I've been doing more recently is hiring people like on a fixed term. So like, let's say it's 3 months, and there's no, like, we don't plan on keeping you after 3 months. This is the message, right? But if things go really well, then we can keep that person, but there's no expectation, So it's easier if we have to decide, oh, we won't keep that person, right? I would say the other thing is, and this is something that's really hard to like, there's no advice for this, but it's our own experience. We've gotten better at what we do, so we can easily, or more easily spot the right person that can complement.
Yeah. I think you also become more clear about your mission. And also, it seems like the types of products and like where you're going to sell this, the avenues. I mean, just talking now about your second project here, SmartHalo 2, maybe you could tell listeners a little bit about that and sort of how that built on your first project.
Right. So SmartHalo 2 really builds upon what we created with SmartHalo 1. So it's not a completely new product, rather it's an evolution on that first step. So we keep the circle of light, which really is, it's in our name, it's our branding, and it's actually a pretty good way to show navigation. So we keep that circle, but now we add a very simple black and white OLED display in the center. And this allows to make all the features a little bit better. Mm-hmm. So for instance, we have fitness tracking on this product, and the way it works is basically as soon as you start biking, then it connects with your phone in the background, and it starts tracking like your speed, distance, elevation, all of that. Mm-hmm. And this is pretty convenient for the user because everything is tracked. But while you were riding, you couldn't know in real time like how many kilometers or how many miles you've done since. Mm-hmm. You had to sort of stop and look at the phone, which is exactly what we're trying to avoid, So now with the new display, this can all be shown in real time. So it comes with a sort of a touch sensor, so you can actually swipe between metrics that you want to show. It makes like the assistant better. So the assistant is basically, it's going to give you a notification if somebody calls you. Mm-hmm. Now with SmartHalo 2, you can actually see who's calling, so you can decide if you want to take it or not.
Yeah, definitely. When you're gearing up to the launch of a new campaign, especially since it's been a couple of years since your last one, I think that's always such a huge endeavor. And I want to get into like some of the technical things that you did to make this campaign a success. One of the questions I had for you, though, while we're on like this theme of hiring and teammates, how is it that you assembled the launch team for this project? Like, I know you worked with a few different agencies and companies. Can you talk a little bit about like how you assembled that team? Where did you find these people? Were you just like Googling around online? Did you get introduced? How did you find who to work with?
So, I mean, the core team has been with us for a while now. So I would say like 2/3 of the team, like the internal team, is product people. So mostly software developers, but also designers, industrial designers, and then you have about 1/3 of like marketing and business people. So this has been the core of SmartHalo for a while now. We've decided that we want to do as much as we can internally. So most of the marketing is done inside, and we will outsource some things that we don't need to do like on a recurring basis. So for instance, like website design, like we design it in-house, but then like the actual integration of the website, we do it externally. Yeah. But the whole campaign, like the whole graphic design of the campaign, that's done in-house for sure.
What about like public relations or these different things?
Right. So these are examples of things that we don't do on a recurring basis. So we chose to work with proper propaganda for public relations. mainly because they're pretty well respected, and I think they did a great job. Also, they're based in Montreal like us, so it sort of made sense.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we've worked with a Israel agency called Shalop that does Facebook advertisement. And again, they're also specialized in crowdfunding. We had worked with them for the first campaign, mostly towards the end of the campaign, and they did pretty well. So we decided to work with them again. Now we've been working with them since day one of the campaign. So it's been going pretty well.
I had to interrupt this podcast episode because I want to introduce you to my friends at The Gadget Flow. Their product discovery platform reaches 22 million people per month. They've helped more than 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns thus far, and they have a social media following of more than 700,000 followers. If you want to gain access to their marketplace and list your own product, you can go to thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today. I think you have a really compelling video here. Did you guys create that? They put that together yourself, or did you get help with that?
So we got help, but we kept a very, close eye on production and, artistic direction, I would say. The director for that video is someone we knew from high school, actually. So he's someone local, and we worked with a post-prod agency that's across the street from us. Mm-hmm. So we made this very local. So we've made 3 videos in total since the beginning of the company. So there was the first crowdfunding video, and then we did a second one when we actually launched, when we started delivering units, and this is the third one. And every time we worked with a different agency. I think they all had their own styles, which is great. But overall, my partner especially, he's the graphic designer, the UX designer. I would say like everything that looks good with SmartHalo, that's him. So
it's a really short video. It's almost just under 3 minutes long. But it's so chock full of just like incredible, breathtaking views and, different views and angles of people riding the bike and using the product. And at the end, also seeing some of your teammates, like they're laughing and like having a good time. And it's a really like warm kind of video. You know what I mean?
I mean, we're laughing because, we're laughing most of the day. It's good that I'm recording this from my place because otherwise you would hear people laughing in the background.
Yeah. That's awesome. I think the video really, it speaks so much to the product, and it's kind of what, captures attention. And I don't think that's changed, from 2015 to now. Do you think anything has changed on Kickstarter from when you first launched yours to now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that changed is there's been a lot of disappointments, because some of the biggest campaigns, that the most successful ones, are usually those that struggle the most to deliver. And, to be fair, we were also late delivering, but we, still managed to ship, right? And there's been so many stories of campaigns not delivering on their promises that it made a lot of people a bit sore on crowdfunding. Mm-hmm. And this in turn has also, made journalists a bit colder on crowdfunding. And I feel like it's harder to get press now than it used to be. Like last time, we didn't even have a PR agency. And, media requests were coming in pretty easily, and most of them just would write about us and not even ask for an interview.
Yeah.
Now it's much harder. Now this, it's not the new thing anymore in a sense. But for harder startups, it's still as valuable. You get that early feedback, and you get the money up front, which is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Was it as easy for you as a team to build up that email list the second time around as the first time?
Well, for us, one big advantage that we have is the product that we build is a connected product. So we require users to sign in with their emails. Mm-hmm. So all those users are part of the mailing list now. Our email list, like I can't really give a number, but it's 15 times bigger than it was the first time. So this
Yeah,
is
so
really
you're
helpful.
getting big there. Did you do any like Facebook ads like pre-launch to build up the email list, or you kind of just like worked off your existing assets there?
No, we also did pre-campaign email gathering, and the conversion rate for this is insane. The email list is still the biggest and most important thing any prospective campaign can do is build that email list.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to convert way better than anything else you could do. And also, it informs you on what you need to build, and because Facebook can be a good way to understand your market a little bit, so you can see who is responding better to what you're proposing, right? So
Very well said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one question I have for you on that front was, did you guys like experiment with Facebook Messenger bots at all with your email strategy?
If we're using Facebook Messenger we're doing Facebook chats for questions, I guess, but
Not like the bot
not
element.
really.
Yeah.
No, we don't have that bot element. We've tried it, but sometimes people realize that it's a robot and they don't really like it. So, nah, we prefer to have a human behind it most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's understandable. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious because I've seen more campaigns doing that in the past. I'm just kind of curious what your experience was like there. One of the other things that when it comes to doing these different projects, I think, is kind of planning for like unpredictable success and also like that mid campaign slump. So you had a
Yeah,
$50,000 goal. You totally surpassed that. You've gone up to $700,000, which is phenomenal. And now you have 21 days to go. A lot of people, I think, that get to this point are kind of frustrated in the middle of the campaign because they don't really know what to do. Do you have any thoughts
yeah,
on that?
yeah. Well, it's pretty frustrating, that's for sure. I think one of the key to keep that momentum is keep hustling. Basically, try to get more newsletters that talk about you. Try to keep running ads. Keep talking to media as much as you can. It's really hard for sure. The last campaign, like our slump lasted about 20 days, and we were doing mostly like 10K a day, like Canadian. And we really did well, like at the beginning and at the end of the campaign. Now, like average days, like I would say, like the normal days are 30 to 40K, which is a lot better than we did first time.
Mm-hmm.
So
The important thing is
like,
you got to keep at the hustle.
yeah, you got to keep hustling, but you have to realize that you've got to work for like every pledge, and that means trying to find new ways to get other people to talk about you. One thing to realize is that the conversion rate on your campaign will never be that good. Once it's done, like conversion rates will drop, pretty dramatically. So you need to do as much as you can to get more people see your campaign during that period, because otherwise it's going to be much harder afterwards. So
You don't
and
have
this is
that
something that,
urgency. Yeah.
yeah, there's that urgency. Kickstarter is a special moment, and so this is why you have to do as much as you can during that time, for sure.
Did you envision yourself like we're talking now about growing your second product, the improvements. You now have a team behind you. You have media attention from like all over the globe. Did you imagine when you were a freelancer that like this was going to be your future in just a couple of years, or is this kind of like wow?
Yeah, no, I don't think I could have imagined. Like when I started SmartHalo, I was also doing a bunch of other side projects at the time. Like my life was just running side projects. And like those were pretty different. One was a writing project, the other was a soft drink distribution business. And so I was doing many things at the same time, and I realized, well, if I'm gonna succeed at something, I need to focus and do only that.
Mm-hmm. And really get to know, I think, those people that you're serving to, the customers. I think that's kind of like as an entrepreneur, it's always difficult because you have a lot of different ideas and you're always like pulled in so many different directions. You can have so many projects you're working on, but at the end of the day, it's really that intimate, almost like creepy kind of knowledge that you have about your customers and their needs and how they think about what it is they want to do in their life and their lifestyle and what they want to accomplish. I think it's that intimate knowledge of your customers that really you only get over time, and
Yeah,
focusing in.
absolutely. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I would say the first time when we launched the first campaign, like, I mean, we did some surveys, but it was mostly based on intuition, what we figured we would like as urban cyclists. And the V2 is really like the result of speaking to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cyclists, our own users, but also like people who didn't buy. And we wanted to understand why they didn't buy. You know? Um,
I think it's one of those things too where it's like if you're trying to learn something new, like you're trying to learn a new skill, you can go out there and you can research that online, and there might be some information there to help you do something. But if you're trying to learn about your customers and what they want and what they need, all of the things you're trying to learn are like in their head. You got to talk to them. You got to actually converse with these people. You got to get their genuine thoughts, their behaviors on how they, use their bike and the problems they have, how they use your product, the feedback that they give you. It's this whole like discovery kind of who these people are and also how they interact with what your product does and the problem behind it.
Absolutely, you cannot Google that. You have to speak with your clients, and it's actually something that I wasn't super good at. And it came by hiring people who were better at this product management than I was, and we built this whole methodology for figuring that out.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, this has been a lot of really good advice and tips here. My final question for you here is when it came to your project here, if you're thinking about the success you've had with your first campaign, now your second one is going really well. Are there any other tips or like insider bits of advice that you want to pass on to the audience for someone maybe like you who is freelancing or is doing their day job and they're trying to launch their own little project here? Do you have any advice to impart? It could even just be honestly a word of encouragement.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you have a project or an idea, in your drawer, you need to, work on it for sure. If you want to launch a crowdfunding campaign, I would advise you to of course, do it. Depending on what the product is, it might not be suited for crowdfunding, but otherwise, yes, do it. But plan in advance. You can never plan too much a crowdfunding campaign. I would say speak with other successful campaigns, in your city. Try to get their feedback and how to make it successful. And again, building that audience before launching is crucial. Like there is no way it will sell itself if you just launch it and wait for the pledges to come in. Like they won't come in. You need to find that audience before launching.
It kind of reminds me of you getting into the Apple store. You don't then have to worry about selling the product. Like it's Apple's job to sell the product because they're doing the distribution. But when you're with crowdfunding, you don't have a distributor. So like you have to kind of set up those distribution mechanisms like your Facebook page or on Instagram or your email list. Like you have to build out your own distribution almost a little bit with the news.
Yeah, exactly. That being said, I would say that even in Apple stores, like we still need to drive traffic there. And we still need to make sure that this is something they've heard about when they go in an Apple store. And this is hard. This is really, really hard.
I think so too. Awesome, man. Where can people go to learn more about your project and where can they get in on the SmartHalo 2?
Just type SmartHalo on Google and you should find it.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on the show, providing a lot of good advice for entrepreneurs. And I also appreciate, I think, what you're doing because it makes biking a lot easier, which is a way more sustainable way to get to work and also hopefully cut down on like carbon emissions and all those different things. So thank you for your work. Absolutely. And we'll have to have you back.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Let me tell you about our latest sponsor, SendPro Online by Pitney Bowes. Shipping can be complex. Things can get really confusing really fast. With SendPro Online, it's easy to save time and money no matter what you send, from letters and packages to overnights and flats. You can easily compare USPS, UPS, and FedEx in an all-in-one online tool. You can print shipping labels and stamps directly from your printer. You can even track all of your shipments and get email notifications when they've arrived. SendPro Online is only $14.99 a month, and listeners can get a free 30-day trial when you visit pb.com/crowdcrux. That's pb.com/crowdcrux. Experience the convenience of SendPro Online for yourself when you sign up for a free 30-day trial. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman. Thank you for joining me today on the podcast episode. I hope you took something away from the SmartHalo journey. You took something in terms of the leadership, or in terms of what you got to do in order to have that critical mass when you go live, you get some funding. Or even just you took something away when it comes to the product design element. How do you design a product that people want to buy? That is the name of the game. Like I said in the beginning, it's really easy to create a product. It's really easy to write a book. It's really easy to do a lot of these things nowadays, when previously it was actually, I think, pretty difficult. The hard thing is, how do you create something that people want to buy? And also, if you can do something that people want to share after they buy it, that's even golden. That's when you have a viral success and you get lots and lots of people in the door. And just quite simply getting that question right, will people buy this? That question can make the difference between a successful business and a not so successful business. It can make the difference between spending a year of your life investing into this campaign and it going really well, and it changing your life completely. Think about the entrepreneur that came on today, going from nothing, being a freelancer, having a bunch of different entrepreneurial projects, and then one takes off. Him now having a bunch of employees that's helping him out. He's now getting cited in major media publications. He's now in the Apple Store with his product. This all happens based on the decisions that you make. And I think that the idea of getting to intimately know your customers, there's nothing better that you can spend your time doing. So the biggest takeaway that I had also with this episode or this interview is that actions stem from thoughts and products stem from thoughts and ideas. And it sounds kind of weird to say that, but think about it. Everything around you, whether it's your desk or your laptop or your smartphone, all of these were a thought first. They were an idea. It's really about cultivating those ideas and creating the physical form. That's where the magic lies. And crowdfunding is incredible because it gives you the funding in order to actually try this thing out, to try out getting a mass-produced order, to get the funding necessary to do more marketing and to invest in your company. So crowdfunding is one of the reasons why I think the reason why I'm so passionate about this whole startup journey. It's just because I've seen crowdfunding affect so many people's lives over the years. You can go back into my archives in the last 200 episodes. You can see how crowdfunding has significantly impacted the small business entrepreneur. And it's allowed people just like you who don't have tremendous resources, who don't really have much more than, the brain in their head and a passion. They can actually go out there and they can build a business out of nothing. And it can dramatically not only transform their own lives, but also the lives of their employees and the lives of the customers that they are serving and helping with these products. So it's so inspirational to me. I hope that if you haven't yet, you take some action on this. And if you want to book a one-on-one coaching call with me and kind of square away the foundation for your project, get into the marketing strategy, get into the advice that I have for you, as well as introduce you to key resources and tools, things that can help you along the way, I'm going to give you a link right now. So write this down if you're interested in booking a one-on-one, one-off coaching session with me. It's an hour-long intensive session. So this link is crowdcrux.com/coaching. That is crowdcrux.com/coaching. crowdcrux.com/coaching. Go to that link, tell me a little bit about you and your project, and we can get this started ASAP. We can make sure that we assemble a good launch pad for your project so that it really takes off, and as well, hopefully eliminates any kind of red flags that I see that could maybe hamper the success for your campaign. This is investing in your project, investing in yourself, and investing in your future. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. My name is Sal, and I will see you next time.